That's how fast I go, and I want to. I think this message will be kind of a little bit of a heavy message in on the emotions, as I want to talk about a little bit, and so, but I think it can help all of us a lot, so I started. They always ask me, "What's the title of your message?" Title of the message. It's all S's. You ready? There you got it there in the PA booth. Ready? It's Scripture Psychology on Serving and Suffering.
Amen.
Scriptural Psychology on Serving and Suffering. All right. Philippians chapter 2 and verse 4. Either you think I'm ignorant or you're ignorant, one of those two things in there, and either one doesn't matter to me. And verse 4, I know. But you won't forget the title, will you? Verse 4, look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of man. And being found in the fashion of a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even to the death of the cross. Wherefore God also hath highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. All right, let's pray and we'll get into this. Lord, this is an important and beautiful passage. We thank you for it. Thank you that we have answers in the Bible, Lord. And we talk about sorrow a little bit today, and suffering a little bit, and strengthening others, Lord, and being strengthened ourselves. I pray that we would get the answers in the Bible, and your Holy Spirit would help it to be clear and speak to each one of us and help each one of us. Just, Lord, if we could make progress or be more wise, better prepared to help someone in the future, it'd be wonderful. I need this, Lord. I need help to do this better and do the things included. And so, Lord, as you have led, we thank you in this message, that it's your message, and it's always good when it's your message, Lord, and I believe this is exactly what you have for us tonight. So please bless it. We thank you for this night. We love you. You're such a good God, and we give you all the praise and glory for all you do, and thank you. And bless this food now, this food, spiritual food now, in Jesus' name. Amen. I thought somebody just sneezed, going to say, God bless you, and then I started thinking about all these things. And Philippians chapter 2 and verse 4, I think this verse is amazing. It says this, look not every man in his own thing, but every man also in the things of others. We're supposed to be thinking about other people and having our mind in other things. And look not on our own things all the time. That's important. But there's a word in there that is easily missed. I'm going to get to that word. And then the second part, we see Jesus took upon him the form of a servant, verse 6 and 7. It says, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but took upon him, made himself of no reputation, took upon him the form of a servant. And so Jesus went, and a couple things there. First of all, he was God, yet he took upon him the form of a servant. He wasn't just, an angel. An angel serving a human is amazing. They do, but that's amazing. But he was God, and yet he took upon himself the form of a servant. And we're supposed to follow that example. And so serving other people. And so there's unselfishness and in these passages, and looking on the things of others. But I want you to notice, and it's a big part of the message, understand this, and we'll get to that in a couple minutes later and in a couple points later. But I want you to notice there in verse 4, it says, look not every man in his own things, but every man also in the things of others. We'll get to that also in there in the passage. I was coming out of the airport, I don't know, this has been probably 10 or 12 years, and I don't know where I was coming from or anything, but I was coming out of the international part, and the the flight was a little early, and I was hanging around, and they just opened a new section now at the SeaTac. But at that point, there was the old section, and so everybody at the old section would come out and meet their person coming in, and it was the international section, so it was a mix of a few people like me who would be coming in from coming back to America, but a lot of it was, family of immigrants who were now joining them. And who knows what the other people were, but a lot of them, you'd see them dressed in every possible way. You'd have Jewish people, you could tell by their clothing, and you'd have Muslim people, and you'd have people from India, and people from all around the world. And just there was such happiness, and even, people coming back. And then, I went outside, and I waited. I was waiting in the international section of arrivals for my ride, and I was watching people coming, again, running to the car and hugging and crying and being happy and joyful. And I thought, if someone was sad and depressed, they should come here and just watch this. And they would just be seeing all these people so happy, and all the crying and laughing and hugging, and all these people, and all this rejoicing, and everybody's really happy. And then if you're a pretty wise person of people, you realize that might not work. That might backfire. And as me and my pondering mind that ponders things forever, and as I started thinking about this, I thought, what's the difference? And I understand that certain people would be very sad to see that. And they'd say, I'm lonely, and why don't I have someone to, and they'd go that direction, and it'd be, very sad for them. And some people who are very lonely would be very happy. Other people are happy, and some wouldn't. And there's a full spectrum of the way people react to it. And so in that, I just pondered that a lot and started, thinking, the way I see this, me, it's, I'm rejoicing, and I'm having fun watching this, but, other people aren't. And how can I help people with this? And started thinking about that, and just to kind of ponder that a lot. And seeing that, and not realizing that not everybody would be, and people are in different situations in life. Maybe somebody at some point in their life would have a blast watching that, but there'd be periods of their life, maybe a month or two, they'd say, I can't watch this, and it's going to make you miserable. Even though other people are happy, it's not making me happy. And maybe all of us would do that. And then I remembered back when I was thinking about that, and rejoicing other people are happy. And I remember I went to a pastor's conference when the church was young, and we were struggling, and everything was going, really bad. And we were just almost nobody was coming. And I went to a pastor's conference, and when I started this church, there was I think there's 3 other churches, one in Oregon and 2 in Washington, that started right about the same time we started. One of them was Liberty Baptist, by the way. And so we all started the same year. And so the other churches did really well, but ours didn't. And so I went to a pastor's conference, and it wasn't. I'm taking it back. It was a conference with a guest speaker. There was a real well-known guest speaker, and so I went to that conference, and there was a decent amount of pastors, but most of them were us 4 new guys, and the other 3 guys are doing great. And when this guy stood up and introduced himself, one of the pastors got up, and this guy, man, what happened is another church in the area had a lot of problems, and this guy took all these church members. And so at the end of the first year, he's running about 70 people, but they're all from this other church. But he was running 70 people, and that's what everybody knew, is he's running 70, at the end of the first year. Well, I was running 5 people. And so this guy stands up and says, Pastor so-and-so from so-and-so church, and the pastor goes, tell him how many you had on Sunday, and just starts just raving about this guy's doing this, and this is happening. And then next one got up, and he says, this guy just started 5 months ago. He's already doing this, and he's full-time, and he's winning souls. It's going great, and this, and brother so-and-so. And then I got up. I introduced myself, and the pastor knew it wasn't going well for me. And so I just sat back down, and the pastor didn't say anything else. And when I listened to those pastors, I was thinking, because the thing is, you can be a pastor who's a person who's like, it's okay, I don't mind, all this, whatever God gives me. But, I have a big vision and big fire. It's not really what I expected. And, I'm not a person to be content with what we have now. I got it. I'm content in the sense where I could be content, but God's given me a lot of fire and to do great things for God. And that's just what I'm wired to do. Okay. And so because of that, that was very difficult on me. And the truth was, I was not rejoicing how those guys' churches were going. and I should have been. I should have said, thank God, these guys are winning souls. But I thought, I hope you have a big church split and I have more than you next week. But I didn't think that exactly. But, that's part. When we're suffering sometimes, maybe you're like me, and sometimes you can get a little bit petty. You go to somebody else's wedding when you're single, and you're not going, I'm glad you're married. Why did you get married? I'm much better looking than you. And you think that, and you maybe kind of get, and we just do stuff like that. And, they get a new car, and you're driving the junker, and you're like, where'd you get money for that? and I'm laughing. You know where they got it from the bank, okay? I read a statistic this week. 18.4% of people have a car payment of $1,000 or more a month. 18.4% of people have a car payment of $1,000 or more per month. I said, oh, goodness, can you believe that? No wonder they drive nice cars. Man, how many cannot imagine making a $1,000 car payment? Oh, goodness. And man, it better be a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. That's all I can say. But we see things, and sometimes we don't rejoice. And that's kind of the message tonight, is along those lines. I just want us all to get petty and hate other people. But some people see things like that, and we got to be careful with people who are sorrowing. And let's go to Proverbs in chapter 25. And verse 20. And Proverbs 25 and verse 20. As he that taketh away a garment in cold weather, and as vinegar upon the niter, so is he that singeth songs to a heavy heart. So sometimes, sometimes, I just want to say, sometimes, and boy, well-meaning people, including myself, have done this before. I don't do it anymore. But sometimes, hey, cheer up. It's going to be okay. Be happy. Isn't what they need. Okay? And isn't necessarily the thing that's going to make them rejoice. Because people are in sorrow, and they're not going to rejoice over good things sometimes. And sometimes they're just in that sorrowful period, and they're weak, and they're beat up, or they're discouraged. Yet there is a balance where someone needs to come out of sorrow and be happy for others' sake. Look not every man in his own thing, but every man also in the things of others. Let me take you to Romans chapter 12. I'll be back in Proverbs in a little while. Romans chapter 12. And verse, let's see, verse 15. This is a verse we use several times tonight. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. So look at that balance there. Some people you rejoice with, and sometimes people you weep with. And we're gonna need that passage for several things. There is a balance. I think every one of us should be a person helping those rejoice and helping those who weep. I think both of us are going to be in that position at some points in our life where we are sad and we aren't going to rejoice for other people. We're in that burden, but I do also want you to be able to climb out of that where you can rejoice for other people. Yes. I understand there is a time when you wouldn't want to go to that section of the airport and watch that. But I don't want that to be your life. Because I want you to get, and there will be points in my life where I won't want to go and see somebody else happy. But I don't want that to be my life. I want my life to be a life where I am happy when others are happy and blessed when others are blessed. And rejoice to them that rejoice. And so we want to get there. So I'm going to give you some thoughts and give you a few points on this. Number one, there is a time of sorrow when we need others to lift us up. Let's go to Matthew 27. There is a time in your life where you will sorrow and you'll need somebody else to lift you up. You'll need outside help. And it can come in a lot of forms: a friend, a sermon, someone who loves you, a spouse, a child. It can be just someone at church, someone walks up and says kind words to you. Sometimes you did something a while back, and all of a sudden someone comes up and says, you didn't even know it, and you're all discouraged, and all of a sudden, right at the right time, God sends that person to you and says, you really encouraged me and really impacted my life on this day. And you were wondering why nobody noticed. God was just timing it out right. Okay? And there is a time, though, you got to have somebody else help you. And so this is, of course, Jesus here. And I'm sorry, it's Matthew 26. I said 27. It's Matthew 26 and verse 39. You see the passage. He says, sit you here and pray. Verse 36, 37, he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee and began to be sorrowful and very heavy. Jesus is very sorrowful. And he said, my soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here and watch with me. So Jesus is very sorrowful, and he's telling them, I need you to pray for me. And he went a little farther and fell on his face and prayed. And he said, oh, my Father, we had that cup sermon recently, and he's praying, this cup passed from me. So he's saying, I need you guys to pray for me because my soul is very sorrowful. Jesus, who always looked on the needs of others, had a moment when he said, I need you to pray for me. And so I think there's a time when we have that where I think, and I just tell you, as most of my life is ministering to people and gladly, and I love it and rejoice in it, there are times when I just can't do that right now. I'm just, I'm spent, or I'm struggling with something right now, and that is okay. It's okay to visit there. Okay, it's okay to be a hotel room, but it's not your apartment or your house. Okay, there's a time when you need someone else. You need someone to weep with you when you're weeping. You need someone to encourage you when you're down. And that's a hard thing to face for strong people sometimes. But sometimes you are weak, and sometimes you are in that situation. And people need to weep with us at those times. And you need to allow it. You go tell someone your problems. And you're going to be maybe a little petty. And somebody's going to be happy, and you're going to say, okay, I'm glad you're happy. And you're going to wish you wouldn't have said it, And they're going to be like, okay, I'm happy. Why are you talking to me that way? They don't know what you're going through unless they have some wisdom. And please be sensitive to that. Watch people carefully. And, I'm not saying you should share your blessings. I think it's good. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so. But be a little careful with depressed people. Unless, there's two states of depression. There's the self-centered state of depression, and that's what we're talking about tonight, and I'm not criticizing that, okay? But there's a self-centered state of depression where you're having a pity party. And why doesn't everybody care about me? And why doesn't anybody know about me? And then you're not going to rejoice when the people get together and hug each other. Then there's a time when you're sad, but you're not unselfish. You're just going through something, and you're still happy that other people are happy, and it's not all about you. Okay? So that's all part of the spectrum of humanity. But if you go into the pity party part is okay, and I sound like I'm criticizing, I'm not. I'm just trying to describe it. When you're there, like I was, the service, right? Okay? When you're there, you go and you say, I'm in this right now. I need someone to care for me. I need someone to really help me. Hey, you know what? I'm really struggling, and you know it, and so you get some help from people, and they take care of you because that's what you need right then. You're the person going to the hospital. Even the guy who sometimes is a paramedic or the doctor goes to the doctor sometimes. Sometimes he needs someone to take care of him, and that's okay. But then it's a little bit dangerous spot because you can get stuck there in self-centeredness, and we'll get to that a little bit, but that happens. And so you need to allow people to help you then. You need to go tell somebody, I'm really struggling, I'm really depressed, or I'm really kind of just, and you can laugh about yourself. You can say, you know what, I just think nobody cares about me. I mean, nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention to me. Nobody's worried about me. And you know what? Everybody, the whole world's happy except for me. And just say it. Just go through it. That's fine. And somebody will care about you and help you, and God will send you the person. And there's nothing wrong with that. And just admit it and deal with it. And that's okay. Somebody's there. God will send somebody to help you. And find somebody. And allow somebody to do that. Allow someone to be weak. And, Paul said the weak became as weak, and do that. And see, when I told the story of me being petty, all of a sudden, oh, I'm glad Pastor does it too, right? Yeah. Right? You weren't saying, oh, poor Pastor. You didn't think that. You were saying, I'm glad he's miserable too. And so you do that, and that's okay because just allow people and help them. Number 2, this should not be a continual state. We've said that, but then take it to Proverbs again. And Proverbs chapter 12. This should not be the continual state. I've kind of said that. And so hopefully we'll get to this point pretty quick. Verse 25. Heaviness in the heart of man maketh it stoop, but a good word maketh it glad. So that long term, it's really not good. Proverbs 15 and verse 13. A merry heart maketh a cheerful countenance. By sorrow the heart the spirit is broken. Too long, too much sorrow will break your spirit. 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7, he says, look, this guy, if you don't go help him now and give him some compassion, he'll be overcome with overmuch sorrow. He'll be consumed with overmuch sorrow. He'll have too much sorrow. And I fear that for people sometimes who struggle with that. I totally understand depression and sadness and weeping and all that. I get it. But I worry when they're there too long. And that too long is just different. There are some people who just are strong and they can be depressed for years. And some people, they're weeks in, they're like, they're done. And we're all different. And some people are just wired, it's just God made them different. Some people get some grace, and things like that. But it shouldn't be a continual state, because you can be overwhelmed with sorrow and be in that position. And then just some thoughts underneath that. It can actually become your comfort zone. When you get happy, you almost have to sabotage it because you're so used to being sad. And so you sabotage your potential happiness, because even though you say, I know I want to be happy, but you're used. Alcoholic children, they're known, even if they're not alcoholics, for having chaos in their life. They just kind of they'll quit jobs. They will have problems in their relationships. Their life is always in chaos because they grew up with chaos. That's what they're used to. Okay? That's one of the things that's passed on many times. Besides alcoholism, is chaos, because they grew up in chaos. And they're almost not comfortable unless things are chaotic. And so all of a sudden they're getting evicted and they don't really need to and stuff like that, because that's our comfort zone. And sorrow can become your comfort zone. It can become a way to get attention. And it's a horrible way to get attention. People are going to step up and help you, but wise people will stop at a certain point and say, it's time to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You've been doing this long enough. You know what? We've told you what to do. You're not doing it. You just don't care. Okay, you said that before. I proved I've cared. This is not a good way to get attention. In your life, praise people when they do good things so they don't have to do bad things to get attention. Okay? It's a really important thing to do, because people generally need attention. And if they don't get it for being good, they will get it for being bad. Now, you should need attention like that. If you're at peace with God, I believe you don't have that need. But praise people when they're doing good, and lift them up when they're doing good, so they don't have to get attention, because a lot of people get everybody, because a lot of people are compassionate. And I believe in that. And I think there's a time period of that, but there is a time when all they want is the attention of being, that they get. They love the attention, and everybody loves on them, and they want to love. That's not a healthy thing. Okay, love on people when they're doing good too. Okay, and do that. It can become a tool of Satan to destroy you if you live there too long. And then it can become a manipulation tool. Man, if you're not used to people and you don't know this, you don't understand manipulators, man, they will pour on the tears. 5 minutes ago they were smiling. Man, a lot of people on the streets, man, they can put on an act and they manipulate people with that. If you don't take me in, I'm going to die, and you don't even care, and nobody cares. I'm just going to go out here and kill myself. And that's the way they control people, get what they want. It's a manipulation tool. And if you just live in sorrow all the time, that's the way you get what you want. And so you have to live there to get what you want because your character doesn't get you what you want. Okay? And by the way, those are not healthy relationships. They're not healthy. They're not good for you. They're not good for them. Okay? And I've had more people telling me I'm a horrible, evil person because it didn't help them that time. But it was time for them to do their own thing. And I'm used to it, and it doesn't bother me anymore. Like it used to drive me crazy. It feels so guilty because they'd start crying and say, well, I guess if the pastor doesn't care, nobody cares, and all this stuff. And the pastor cared a long time and was there and did everything else, and it's time for you. Look, you've got money. And we've helped you all these times. You won't quit smoking. You won't quit doing your drugs. You're going to need to quit doing those things so you can pay your own rent. We helped you last month. We didn't know you're doing drugs and smoking. And we love you, and we'll help you get treatment. But no. Oh, I'm going to be in the street. I'm going to die. Okay. Well, I hope that doesn't happen. We love you. We'll be here for you. Don't use it as a manipulation tool. Don't try to make people do things because you are so miserable because nobody cares about you. That they're talking to you, that means they care about you. And nobody in this church can say nobody cares about you. Your church cares about you. These people in this church are very compassionate, okay? And so don't do those things. Number 3, and so at that point, you should not not let it become a comfort, a continual state, a comfort zone. Number 3, to help people, we need to be prepared. Okay, be prepared. Let's go back to that verse in Philippians 4. Now, I've just talked about being unselfish, and we are, and then being compassionate. There's a lot of psychology in this. But Philippians 2, the Bible phrases this, the whole thing's very funny to me. Philippians 4:2. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. If you don't read that carefully, God words everything carefully. It does not say, look every man on the things of others. It says, don't just look on your own things, but every man also on the things of others. Okay? Because if you do not look on your own things, you will not be strong enough to look on the things of others. Okay? You have to look after your own things. You have to look after yourself spiritually. It's the classic, is pastors burning out because they're so busy with the ministry they don't have time to pray and read their Bibles. When the Bible commands a pastor to take heed to yourself. Make sure you are strong enough. The doctor gets so sick he cannot take care of patients. He's now a patient. That didn't help anybody. And so, I am not going to teach you to be selfish here, because that is built in. It's like, I'm going to teach my dog to bark. Your dog knows how to bark. It's built in, okay? You have to teach the dog not to bark, okay? And so, the Bible says, at the end times, people will be lovers of their own selves. Okay, the funny commandment here in the Bible, one of the funny commandments, second greatest commandment, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The Bible does not tell you to love yourself. It's assumed. Okay, that's the funny thing about it, is God says, I know you love yourselves, so go ahead and love somebody else like you love yourselves. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. Do you see the assumed selfishness in humanity? The potluck next week, we're walking down there, and you look ahead, and you're wanting to get the fried chicken, and there's that leg sitting there, and there's one leg left in the bucket. And there's like 5 people in front of you. And you know what our nature is? I'm going to just walk over there and grab that chicken and go back and get my spot again. Or, hey, man, hope nobody takes that chicken. And then so you're not going, legs of chicken are, especially extra crispy, that is so good. I hope that person, 3 people or 4 people in front of me, gets that thing and enjoys it. That's not built in, right? Built in is the person right in front of you takes it. And then you're like, slap her hips. And you're like, you're all upset and you're like all mad and you're like, ugh. And that's built in. Love your neighbor as yourself. So there's not a lot of Bible telling you to take care of yourself, do this stuff. But it says, look not every man in the things of himself, but every man also on the things of others. Also. So, yeah, look on your own things, fine. But also on the things of others. You've got to do that. And so, first of all, you got to be strong enough to be able to help others. Galatians chapter 6. I'm right in the middle of cutting this off and going through the whole thing. I don't know if I'm going to be too long. Galatians 6. We're okay so far. Brethren, if any man be overtaken in a fault, you with the spiritual restore such a one. In the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Bear you one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Ye which are spiritual are the ones who can do this. Romans chapter 15, verse 1 says this. Romans 15:1. You're probably one step behind me here because I'm going a little bit fast. Romans 15 and verse 1. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. People need to get strong enough to be able to help other people. That's one of the benefits of growing in grace, is because now God has a greater tool to help more people. There's a period of time where you just need somebody to take care of you. There's a period of time you're a baby Christian, you don't know any Bible, you just need fed. I was a baby at some point on earth, and I needed someone to physically take care of me, okay? And spiritually, there's a time when you need someone to take care of you. You're spiritually in the hospital. Okay, we get that. But you want to get better so you can go help somebody else. And that's in every area of your life. You want to be strong enough to help other people. Think of finances. There's a time you need someone to help you financially. And I think that's good. I think you should take that. And we do that, and we're as a church, we want to help people, and especially people who are trying hard and doing the good things. But you don't want to be continually having somebody have to help you financially, right? And what I tell people oftentimes when I have to help them, I say, look, I know you work hard, and this is just a weird period. You had this and this and this happen. You know what? You're going to give to somebody else later. Just take it because it's your time right now. But you know what? If you and they'll, I'm going to give so much later. Great, do it. That's fine. That's good because we want you to do that. I don't think it's healthy for you to always be the taker. It's okay to take sometimes. But take, and when it's time to take it. And that's a big part of the sermon. It's okay. You're in that period. But don't always be the taker. We're switching from being the person who just says, I can't watch happy people, to saying, okay, I'm happy they're happy even though I'm not happy. To eventually being a person who's happy and finding people who aren't happy and making them happy. Okay? These are all steps. But you've got to be someone who's able to help other people. Also underneath that, part of that is not neglecting yourself. Let's go to Ephesians. Not neglecting yourself. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 29. For no man yet ever hated his own flesh, but nourished and cherished it, even as the Lord his church. It says it's natural for humans. Take care of yourself. 1 Timothy 4:16 we quoted, take heed to thyself and to the doctrine, for in so doing thou shalt both save thyself and them that hear thee. Understand, when you're strong and healthy, if I'm a pastor who's strong and healthy, I can feed you and lift you up and strengthen you. If you get strong, you can help needy people and do that. And so when you're not strong, I get it. You may not be able to lift somebody up. You're going to try to pull a person in the boat, but you're exhausted and collapsed, and you just get pulled into the water. That's not good. But you want to get better, and you want to get better so you can help other people, and you need to not neglect yourself in that way. You've got to be careful about yourself. And you are broken, and this is kind of a strange thing. You're broken if you don't have self-preservation. That sounds strange, but you're actually broken. When you say, I don't care if I'm depressed, I don't care if I die, I don't care. Look, the human instinct is me. Okay? The building's on fire, and there's a small door, and we're all trying to squeeze out. I'm going to try to squeeze in front of everybody and get out of there. That's what your panic mode does, right? Okay? Nobility says these people go first. Okay? But your flesh, your natural desire is self. Okay? That's built into us. And so we have that. And so when you lose that, so God has the control. Love your neighbor as yourself. Look not every man in his own things, but every man also in things of others. God has you control that. But if you don't even understand self-preservation, you can't even understand how to love somebody else because you hate yourself so bad. You don't have the normal things, suicidal, all the things that come of that, where you just don't have anything, where the devil's beat self-preservation and caring for yourself, and then you just start not eating and you don't care whether you live or die. That's all unhealthy. Okay? I can live a life of unselfishness and serving other people, but still say, I want to eat. I want to live. I want to live a productive life. I love my kids as dad, and want their dad to come home, and have that in you, and you can have that because it's normal. Love your neighbors yourself. It didn't say don't love yourself. And so you understand you've got to take heed to yourself and not neglect yourself. So, okay, practical way. I can't go and get myself. I can't lose my house because I'm helping other people pay their bills. Does that make sense? That's not spiritual. Okay? If God led me to sell my house and give it all to the poor, okay. But if I'm just being manipulated by people and I'm sitting there and I say, honey, guess what? We haven't been paying our house. We're going to go out and we're going to rent a tarp. We're going to go buy a tarp at Harbor Freight. That's not spiritual. If I just give spiritually and give myself away emotionally to a point, which I don't do and don't worry about, I'm not close to it, where I do it, where I say, I'm just done. I'm just so sorrowful because and then I'm not going to be strong enough to encourage you. Every message is going to be, why even try? And every little thing's going to, once you get there where you haven't taken care of yourself and you're wounded emotionally, spiritually, whatever, you can't handle anything. I can't believe. So, I'm offended. You laughed at my prayer tonight. Fine, I'll never pray in church again. Oh, you know what? Yeah, psychology. I know it starts with a P. I look like I'm an idiot. And you can't handle anything. Nobody can laugh at you. Because you're so weak. Great piece of the which I love that nothing shall offend them. And that's why you can be careful joking sometimes. Because you don't know who's wounded. And you're joking about them gaining weight, and they're not laughing. Okay? And so you got to be really careful about that. And understand, but if you get really wounded, you can't, that self-preservation, that normal of, I got to get out of this hole, just disappears, and you don't care what happens. And that's not healthy. You want to get out of that and move on and get out of that and not doing self-neglect and do that. And so you can get in a lot of trouble if you're not careful, to take care of yourself. And so we got to be careful in that. And so we're gonna go ahead and be strong ourselves. We're not going to neglect ourselves physically, emotionally, financially. I understand you have to fast or something, but your life is not going to be that because you want to remember, you're trying to get yourself out of the poor me. Let me help we want to get strong. We can help somebody. So we're trying to lift ourselves out of there. So you're not staying there. And get there. And then next, you have to care and express and show it. If you're going to help somebody else, you're going to have to care and be able to express it and show it. Romans and chapter 12. Romans chapter 12 and verse 15. Rejoice with them that rejoice, and weep with them that weep. You've got to have that emotional wherewithal to be able to do either one. And you need to be able to do that with both people. These people are happy and rejoicing. Then don't be the person who says, well, I don't want you happy. Guess what? You know what happened? I got a new job. It's probably going to be a terrible job. It's probably going to be that company is going to go out of business. Don't do that because you're sad. Be a person who can rejoice with those who rejoice. Be a person who's also strong enough when someone's weeping to feel their pain and to weep with them when they weep, because you can. And you want to be strong enough to do that you can take yourself down and say, man, you are struggling. I feel, and express it. And because it says weep with them and express that sorrow with them. And you got to be strong to do that. You got to be strong to enter into sin. And some of you, I want to say, you are strong. You're saying, I want to do that with somebody, but I don't have anybody to do it with. Ask God. And God will send you somebody. And show that love and compassion on them. And do that. And so we don't want to live there continually, because we want to get fixed and get healed. And you want to be someone who's strong enough to help other people and get there to that point, and to be prepared to do that by becoming strong. And then number 4, those who are sorrowful need to begin healing. That starts off by, first of all, beginning to think of others. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. There can be a real joy in seeing others happy. Let's go to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians and chapter 10. But here's what happens, whether it's the devil, our flesh, our own logic, whatever. When you are miserable, what you think is, if other people are happy, that means I just got to compare myself with them and I'll be miserable. But that's not what you have to do. You can actually be happy for other people, even though you're sad. But it takes you getting out of yourself and being unselfish for a moment. And that's hard at that point, but you can do it. 1 Corinthians and chapter 10. And, let's see. What do you say? 1 Corinthians 10 and 32, I think, is my verse. And let me find it here. Is that the right verse? Giving no offense to anything, giving no offense neither to the Jews nor to the Gentiles, nor to the church of God, even as I please all men in all things. Okay, just think about that. He's trying to be a blessing to them, thinking about them, not seeking mine own profit, but the profit of them, that may be saved. So notice that he's not worried about himself; he's worried about them. Charity, 1 Corinthians 13 and verse 4 and 5, vaunteth not itself, seeketh not her own. Rejoice in them that rejoice also. Learn to think of others, and not just think about your plight. But even when you start, and you're in that point where you need help, that's fine. And then they help you, and then start saying, you know what, they've been a blessing to me. I'm going to see if I can be a blessing to them. You know what, you've been such a blessing to me when I was down, and I'm still down. But you know what, you cared so much for me. I want to take you out to lunch today. I just bought you a gift. I wrote a card just to be a blessing to you. I just want to encourage you that you're making a difference in my life. See how that just lifting yourself up, looking away from the mirror for a minute, just kind of makes you happier. And you give them the card, you will feel better. You will. So illustrate this. In the Philippines, man, did we when we packed that trip out, and I mean it was ridiculously scheduled, and then we added stuff when we were there. And we had the whole camera crew, and we had 24 people, and we had all these activities and 2 churches. Nobody would do that. I've never heard of any missionary or anybody in a mission trip ever doing anything like what we did, okay, on that trip. Ridiculous. All that was pressure on me. When I was talking last week about being busy, when I talked about you just have to drink that cup, remember? my cup is actually not being busy. I got time. My cup is more pressure. And so all that pressure is on me on that trip constantly. Where am I supposed to be? Somebody's asking me, where are we supposed to be? Do we have the supplies? Are there chairs of this church? The van broke down. All this stuff constantly. Where are the camera crews going? What's going on? All this stuff. There was never a moment where I didn't have, the last day when the last church has started and we had the day off, I'm like, oh, my soul. And, but you say, man, that must have been a miserable trip. No, I had a blast. But you know what was a blast? It was watching the people. It was watching the people from Open Door. It was watching Ron and Daniel come back rejoicing how many people got saved at the basketball court. And watching, Iris with her little friends, hanging around her and how much they all just loved each other and all the joy in that. And watching the people go out the islands and come back rejoicing, all the people saved and the open doors. And watching as the big days happen and watch how many souls get saved. And as we go and meet at the building and the guys who built the building rejoice they are part of the building. And to watch the joy on the faces of all these people as they're just going. And then sometimes seeing them going, I don't want to leave. I love these people so much. And to see their joy, and then to just see the young people and the fruit from the churches and how great the churches are doing, and these young people are saved now, and they're serving God, and they're happy, and they're about to graduate from college, and all that was my joy. I had a blast. Was any of that my personal happiness? None of it. Well, I had mangoes every morning. That was awesome. I mean, Filipino mangoes, by the way, it's different, okay? You just don't understand. And but there was things I liked. But really, I had a blast. But it wasn't about, all the fun I had. A lot of times, I didn't get to go on the activities. A lot of times, everybody else went to the restaurant. And poor me, I'm sitting there coordinating things. Why they're at the mall, eating at the restaurant. Just want you to know that. But you know what? To see souls saved, to see all the rejoicing, to see people having the joy of the Lord, to see people of Open Door being soul winners, to see just people amazed what God is doing, and to see the joy in their faces. That is a joy because it's not all about me. You can actually get more happiness from other people sometimes. You can get more happiness. It's like children. When your children are doing great, you're happy. And you do that. I have no greater joy than to see my children walk in truth, 1 John tells us. James 3:14, I think. I will do two more verses. I'll quote one, we'll read one. James, we're going to get through the whole sermon. And I'll weep with you as you weep about it. And chapter 3 and verse 14. But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, nor lie against the truth. Bitter envying. See, envying, here's a sad thing about envying. Envying is a strange thing because envying is you're actually upset and bitter because someone else is doing good. And that's a sure sign to its selfishness. And selfish people are less happy by far. There's been so many studies done on happiness, and some of those studies talk about if you do things for other people, seeing them happy actually makes you happier than if you did it for yourself. It's just a blessing, but it's counterintuitive with us. I got to make myself happy, but I'm not saying don't make yourself happy. I'm just saying also the things of others, because that'll help lift you up, and then you can rejoice with them that rejoice, and you can be happy somebody else is happy, and you want to be strong enough to help others. Galatians 6:1, Romans 15. Ye that are strong should bear the infirmity of the weak. And so this is a way to help us to help others. So let me read you a prayer letter here. It's part of the sermon. From the Dukes. March is the most recent prayer letter. Dear praying friends, thank you for praying for these last few months. I'm sorry I haven't gotten a letter out since December. I got COVID for the third time in January, and I've been struggling ever since. About 10 years ago, while I was preaching at a conference in a nearby church in Texcoco, I got typhoid fever. Within 14 months, I got it twice more. I never completely recovered from it. for quite a while, I was just kind of dragging my body to places where I was supposed to be, doing the best that I could. In January 2021, I got COVID. And then in July 2022, I got it again. And now in January, I got it again. Guess who was there when he got it one of those times? And I have been struggling and have a lot of days where physically, emotionally, and mentally, I'm pretty much worthless. I go out soul winning for a couple hours, and then I can't do anything for the rest of the day or the next. So I'm just struggling along, trying to do the best I can. A lot of times, I just can't focus on anything. Last November, we went to my brother John's funeral in Pearl River, Louisiana, when we were in town. We saw one of my younger sisters, Angelica. They witnessed to Angelica again while they were there. Angelica didn't get saved, and then she died. Okay? She died young. This just happened on February 3rd. She died at 59 years old. And that happened to her. And so thank you for all, praying for us. I don't know if I have what they call long COVID, but I am going to try to do the best I can. I'm looking for someone to come and work with us and take over the church in Yapatech. Please pray, Lord, to provide that right man and some other information. His daughter, Miriam, we met her in New Mexico. She lives in Baltimore. Her husband's assistant. No, her husband is super involved in church there, and they do ministry there, and I think it's Baltimore. It is Baltimore, and but they had they were pregnant a couple years ago, and they didn't have any grandkids at all, and she was just about to have the baby, and it was stillborn. It was, I mean, if it wasn't the day before, it was very late, and they came into town for the birth and everything, and they had that, and Miriam had that, and it just broke their heart. And today, Miriam had a baby. Praise the Lord, everything's good, and had a baby. Now they got a grandchild. And all of that, with Brother Duke going through all that, and all those worries, yesterday when the baby was still not there yet, and she was getting close, and all this stuff he's having, all his physical problems, he wrote, he messaged me 2 messages. They were audio messages, sent them to me to encourage me, and then wrote a message to me at the end of it, encouraging me with all that. And does he need to take care of himself? Yes. Is he struggling? Yeah, he's struggling. This is a prayer letter. Missionaries, they write that. They're doing really bad. They try to keep everything encouraging. But he lifted up and looked at my burdens. And that'll help him. Because thinking about your own burdens all the time just kind of keeps digging a hole deeper. And I'm not saying don't take care of yourself. I'm not saying there's not a time when you need someone to take care of yourself and just be a person who just help me. I can't do anything right now. And you don't want to see anybody else happy. I get that. There's a time. I've been there. I'm not criticizing that. But don't live there. And get to the point where you can help somebody else. And somehow lift up your eyes and lift up and care about somebody else. And it'll be hard to do, but you'll be surprised how that lifts you up. And you'll be better. All right, let's go ahead and pray. Father, thank you for the chance to teach your word tonight, Lord. And I pray as our core verse that's look not every man in his own things, but every man also on the things of others. I pray we'd do that. And I pray tonight that you'd help us and help those who are struggling and help those who are depressed and help those of us who are in the middle and help those of us who are doing great. I pray all of us would be able to rejoice with those who rejoice and to weep with those who weep. We thank you for the psychology here that the Bible gives us, and I pray this would help all of us. In Jesus' name,